And in the 6th round, the Eagles adding 3 players all on the defense. We are going to break it all down for you right now, live on Eagles Draft Central, presented by Dietz and Watson. I'm Amy Campbell, joined as always, Ross and Fran. The Eagles addressing their defense here with 3 players. Defensive tackle, Marlon Tuipulotu from USC. Defensive end, Tarron Jackson from Coastal Carolina. And then linebacker, safety, Jacoby Stevens out of LSU. We are going to start with Tuipulotu here. Defensive tackle out of USC. 3 really exciting picks for different reasons. All 3 Senior Bowl guys as well, yes. Fran. Let's start with Tuipulotu. What do you like about him?
So 3 things, I guess, that just kind of stand out to me about Tuipulotu. Number 1, very heavy hands. And I want to ask you about that, Ross. A guy that on contact changes the line of scrimmage consistently. Number 2, high motor. This guy is going 100 miles per hour to the ball every single play. And then number 3, his versatility. We talked about that with Milton Williams. He can line up inside as a 1 technique. He's played 3. He's played outside as a defensive end over the tackle as well. Versatility, changing the line of scrimmage, and then his motor. He's a fun player to watch.
All right, so heavy hands.
Yeah.
Good comment. What that means is when that guy shocks you, you feel it. And there's a difference. You know, not every D tackle when you hit him, do you kind of, you kind of have to brace yourself a little bit. Your head snaps back. And that's the thing I noticed watching Tuipulotu is he snaps some head backs. And I don't mean with his helmet. He just jolts him so much with his hands that guys go like this. He actually showed more wiggle than I thought he had. He's very versatile. He can play nose. He can play 3 techniques, so either spot. He really is, especially at this point in his career, an ideal rotational defensive tackle to get in the mix, to give you 10, 15, 20 snaps, very solid snaps.
Yeah, redshirt junior, 3-year starter at USC, really came on in this past year. He talked about in his opening press conference with the Eagles how he really locked in this past year, especially with quarantine and all the restrictions. He knew that the NFL was a possibility and that he really locked in, and you could absolutely see that. Another fun fact, Fran, that you actually discovered in your research, that he was a state champion wrestler in high school, which makes a huge difference for linemen. Ross, what does that add to his game?
Well, it just helps with leverage.
Yeah.
Right? You know, wrestlers just know leverage. They know how to push and pull and tug because they're used to, being engaged like that. Look, Dane Brugler, who's on the Journey to the Draft podcast, Fran and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He had Tuipulotu as his 3rd-ranked D tackle.
Yep.
His 3rd-ranked D tackle. So I'm not going to be the guy this time to say, I can't believe he's here. I never thought. I'm just going to say Dane Brugler can't believe he's here. Yep. Dane Brugler thought he would go well before this.
And not only is he just a really stout run defender and all, he's just violent at the point of attack. He's got some twitch to him too. He's got that ability to get into the backfield, shoot gaps. He was more of a read player for that USC defense where, stack and shed, get your eyes up, find the football. But when they did cut him loose, just let him go after the quarterback, he showed the potential to do that as well.
Well, and the Eagles continuing to prioritize the trenches here in this draft with the 2nd pick of the 6th round at pick 191. Defensive end Tarron Jackson out of Coastal Carolina. A lot to like about this guy as well. Man, his press conference, everybody needs to watch this. I know I keep saying it, but this guy really got me fired up. I loved hearing him talk about his dream coming true, being selected to the Eagles. It was kind of emotional. You guys, he talked about his uncle being an Eagles fan. This was his uncle's favorite team. They were very close. His uncle passed before the season, and fulfilling that dream to be in the NFL. He also talked about his late brother. When Jackson was 9 years old, his brother died of leukemia at age 12. That's why Tarron wears number 9. He promised his brother he would make it to the NFL. He got a little emotional, making those dreams come true. We are so excited to welcome him to Philadelphia and everything that he is going to bring on and off the field.
When you talk to anybody at that Coastal Carolina team, they rave about Tarron. Like, you can't find anybody to say a bad thing about him. I talked to their head coach, Jamie Chadwell, on the Journey to the Draft podcast, and I mean, there's nothing you can say. He's a 3-time captain. Everything that you would want off the field, that's what Tarron Jackson brings. On the field, ho-hum, he was a first-team All-American this year.
Yeah, no big deal.
I mean, he was one of the leading sack artists in college football, finished his career with just under 25 sacks in his career. This is a player who is powerful. He tries to go through you as an offensive lineman. Really fun player.
Yeah, so the knocks are that he's not overly flexible, maybe not the most agile defensive end. Let me just tell you, there's different ways to skin a cat.
Yep.
Like, you don't need to be that guy that bends around the corner like that. You can be a power rusher. You ever heard of Brandon Graham? He's kind of a good player for the Eagles. He's a power rusher. I mean, similar body type, 6'2", 254. The guy had 27.5 tackles for loss and 18.5 sacks the last 2 years. And when you're playing Coastal Carolina, he was the guy you were blocking. Yep. I believe that production translates. He is a power rusher with a significant motor that just keeps going. Love this pick by the Eagles.
When you talk about the culture in that D-line room, that Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, whoever's been in that room with those guys, you're constantly running to the football. When I think of Milton Williams, when I think of Marlon Tuipulotu, when I think of Tarron Jackson, all three of those guys, all they do is run to the football, and they're going to fit right in to that culture that's already established.
And all of them have talked about how excited they are to get in there and learn from guys that they've looked up to in the NFL for a long time. All right, let's talk about the Eagles' third pick in this round. Pick number 224, linebacker Jacoby Stevens out of LSU. Played a lot of safety in college, a little bit of linebacker, a hybrid guy. Led the team in tackles in 2020 with 63. He was one of the top athletes coming out of high school going into LSU. The senior there coming out as well. Fran, what do you like about what he's going to bring to the defense in that linebacker spot that the Eagles have finally addressed here?
I'll tell you, Amy, I watched him last summer, and that was coming off their national championship season, and he was the quarterback of the defense for them, played all over the formation. And I compared him to a former first-round pick in Mark Barron, who played at Alabama, was a strong safety, was a first-round pick, a top 10 pick by the Bucs, and they very quickly moved him to linebacker, and he's been a linebacker since that point. Jacoby Stevens has that same skill set. He can match up on tight ends. He can match up on running backs. He is very physical, and this is not one of those things where, he's a safety and he can't run. He made some great plays in coverage down the field as a deep player, but when you look at his physicality, his ability to key and diagnose the action in front of him, and the comfort that he showed, not just in running the alley and playing from depth, but also playing stacked behind defensive tackles, playing in traffic. He did it a lot. So this is not going to be one of those things where you're like, we don't know how he's going to develop. It's a project. No, he has done it in the SEC, played basically as a linebacker next to other linebackers, playing in traffic. I've seen him do it on film. Now we'll see him try and do it in the NFL.
Well, and the knock on him is that they're just not sure what position he is because he played both linebacker and safety at LSU. Obviously, the Eagles feel like he can play linebacker. He looks like a perfect prototype on special teams, especially early in his career. You think about the guys last year, Davion Taylor, Sean Bradley. You can never have enough guys that are linebacker safety types that run a 4.5 40 like he does and have made a ton of tackles. That becomes the core of your special teams. Really, whatever he gives them on defense, that's gravy. The number one priority for him will be to try to be a core special teamer and make plays. With his athleticism, I mean, the guy played wide receiver as a true freshman. He started a couple games as a true freshman wide receiver at LSU. Like LSU.
No question.
Well, think about the other guys,
and
that
Jamar
were his
Chase. You know how
teammates.
hard it is to play receiver, Terrace Marshall
Yeah.
at LSU? That speaks very well of his athleticism.
Yeah, definitely going to be a lot to like here as the Eagles address their defense completely here so far on day 3. And now we are going to go to the Eagles insider, Dave Spadaro. Dave, you were expecting the Eagles to address the defense. They really hit it hard in the 6th round with these 3 picks. What do you think about these players? What stands out to you?
Yeah, they hit the defense in the 6th round. They'll hit the defense in the 7th round as well. And look, I can't speak to the players. I'm not Fran Duffy. I don't watch the tape. It would be disingenuous for me to tell you what a great player these guys are because I don't know enough about them. But I can tell you how they fit in here in the sense of the Eagles came into this draft knowing they're not 1 player away. They're not 2 players away. They're here to get as many good football players as they can. And I think the strategy, for the most part, has been to let the draft come to them. A couple of trades. They pick up an extra 5th next year. We'll talk about that later. But I really like the fact that the Eagles have given Jonathan Gannon some young talent to work with. At all 3 levels, the Eagles need help. And I think that for the Eagles to come in here and say, hey, we're going to just stick to our board. We're going to trust our scouts. We're going to bank on what they've done for the last 11 months. I like that rather than moving around and trying to outthink things. The Eagles, for the most part today, have let things come to them. 5 of their 6 draft picks going into the 7th round here, including the early pick in the 7th round. On the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles need help there at all 3 levels.
Dave, I wanted to ask you about the linebacker position. Jacoby Stevens obviously making that transition. The Eagles losing Nate Gary in free agency, Duke Riley in free agency. You bring in Eric Wilson, but what does the structure of that linebacker room look like for you going into 2021?
It looks like, look, we can take a look at the linebacker position right here. It looks like Eric Wilson, who knows Jonathan Gannon's defense, and then a whole bunch of question marks. Alex Singleton certainly is somebody who's coming off a terrific 2020. Some young players that the Eagles really are counting on. Draft picks, a 3rd-round pick in Davion Taylor last year. Is he ready to take that next step? Same with Sean Bradley, a 6th-round pick last year. And this is, Ross and Fran, this is where, to me, the fact that these young guys are not on campus, they're virtual, it just hurts their development so much. So Jacoby Stevens is a player that you consider. He's got some opportunity to earn some playing time. When they get into the 7th round here, that is also going to address this draft as well, with Patrick Johnson, linebacker from Tulane, as the 234th overall selection. So I like adding numbers to a linebacker position, a linebacker group that is really in need of playmakers. TJ Edwards, can he take the next step? We saw glimpses of it last year from him, but some injuries held him back. There is some legitimate competition at the linebacker position. And look, the Indianapolis Colts, we have seen that team really rely on their linebackers as playmakers. The Eagles, not so much. To me, this is kind of an indication of a turning of the philosophical tide for the Eagles defense.
Yeah, and Dave, you kind of touched on it, but let's talk about the defensive line a little bit as well. You get Tuipulotu, you get Tarron Jackson, now you get, as you just said, Patrick Johnson. I like getting an infusion of youth there when you think about some of the older guys in the D-line and Barnett and Sweat being in the last year of their contracts.
Yeah, and you got Milton coming in the 3rd round, and you've got age. See, this, Eagles fans, you have to understand, this team is turning its roster over, and it's not a one-weekend process. We've got a whole off-season to go here. There's still going to be opportunities to add players. Players are going to get cut. Howie's going to make trades. You know that stuff is going to happen. Next year, the Eagles have 10 draft picks as we stand and look at it now, potentially with 3 number 1 selections. This roster, in a span of 2 drafts, will be turned around. So, yeah, Ross, you got to bring in competition. You've got to bring in some youth. Fletcher and BG, great Eagles for a long, long time. They're kind of on the back nines of their career. As we take a look at the defensive tackle group, and the addition of Milton Williams is a big one. And Tuipulotu, also a player with high production, a lot of experience, a leader at USC, another player who's got some versatility. And I think Fran spoke to it earlier. The idea of versatility in this draft class is one of the recurring themes that we've seen all the way from Devontae Smith on down. Players are playing multiple positions and giving the Eagles options. And that's really what this whole draft was about, creating options and having a purpose for each of these selections.
All right, Dave, we will catch up with you again after the 7th round. We'll talk more, of course, about that 7th round pick, Patrick Johnson, as well as if the Eagles happen to trade back, they might be done. They could be done. We will get the latest from you after the 7th round in our final show of the day. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, we are going to be right back here to discuss Patrick Johnson and anybody else that the Eagles may be adding in the 7th round. It could be done. It could not be done. We will have to keep an eye on it. Of course, Dave mentioned 10 draft picks already for 2022 as it stands right now. And stay tuned to our app, our social channels, and our website. All of the press conferences of the new Eagles have been there all day, as well as we'll be hearing from Howie Roseman, from Nick Sirianni, and Andy Weidel about the day as it unfolds as well. We'll catch up with you in a little bit here on Eagles Draft Central. See you soon.